Welcome, one and all. We are back after many weeks away. These Signals from Mars live show, and I am joined by a great cast of people. We have Jeremy in the UK, Johan in Sweden, Brad in Utah. Brad, who did his best impersonation of Usain Bolt before the show started. We just saw him run off. And we have Anthony Mackie. Anthony, can't see you. I don't know if you can see us or hear us, but see if we can get you to connect so we can interact with you as well. Anthony and everyone who's joining us tonight is always great to have on the show. So, so we have a bunch of questions here, or a bunch of questions, a bunch of points, a bunch of different topics, is what I should say, that we're going to discuss for tonight's show. And just a few things that I picked out from the news. And there's the first point, which Jeremy sent to me during this kind of mini hiatus here. Anthony's still black and we still can't hear you. So I don't know if anything within the settings needs to be readjusted or if it's just a simple case of jumping out and then jumping back in. But the first point here, which Jeremy sent along, and it's regarding with a lot of these GoFundMes and different things that we're seeing to raise money for artists. And the question is, are fans now expected to pay for their idols' bills? Jeremy, you came up with the point, so I'll let you go first with this. And if you want to explain a little bit more on this point, feel free to do so.
Yeah, well, I think a few years back, Paul Di'Anno was one of them that wanted to get some help for his medical bills. And just recently, the Thunder vocalist, Danny Bowes, was ill. He fell over or something and cracked his head. And he had a terrible bit of a brain injury, I guess you call it. So he was hospitalized. But in the UK, as you know, we have the National Health Service, which is generally free. So he wanted to go, I guess, private to get some extra help, or he wanted to get sort of bolted along a bit faster. And so he asked the fans, to try and support him through it, or at least the band asked for help. And, I was pretty miffed about this. I thought it was a pretty bad thing, really. At the end of the day, we're talking about two people here who earn a lot of money through royalties. The Thunder vocalist, Danny Bowes, he's... He has a radio show here in the UK as well. He's on Planet Rock Radio. So he earns money from that. He earns money from Thunder. And I guarantee that he's a pretty well-off kind of guy. And he doesn't need to ask the fans, or at least the band don't need to ask the fans for any help. He could have just stumped up his own cash, and if he wanted to get some extra help, I wish him all the best. Nobody wants to see him ill. And we're glad that he's making a bit of a recovery now, and he's doing okay. He's back on the radio, but it could be a while before he even plays live again. I just think this is not on, really. Paul Di'Anno's even said that he's expecting to be a millionaire from royalties that are owed to him from Iron Maiden, and he's asking the fans to pay for his medical bills, and I think Iron Maiden stumped up a bit of money for him as well. Just go to the bank and borrow it.
Yeah, to me, okay. This is my 2 cents, and I'll let everyone else chime in. I think that, like you're saying, Thunder's a band that in the UK does pretty well for themselves. That's the one thing that I've heard people like Mick Wall talk about, that even though maybe they came on the scene a few years too late where they would have been megastars, they've still consistently toured the UK and filled arenas in the UK. So if you're filling arenas, you're doing pretty well for yourself. So it's kind of a shame, I think, that you ask fans that are probably, a lot of them are much worse off than the band is, to ask them to pay for your bills. Paul Diano, I know, has been a sticking point with you, Jeremy, with me as well, because this is somebody who has squandered a lot of money that he's made. He's been in jail. He's not allowed in the U.S. because he's on the um, what do you call it? The damn it! Now I don't remember the name of the people that check you in at the Homeland Security. He's on the Homeland Security no-fly list because he threatened to blow up a girlfriend or something like that after beating her, something along those lines. So,
How metal is that?
well, but the thing is, I believe in second chances for people, but this is like the seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th time. And then you see fans, yeah, we got to get him back out there. Dude, how many of us get that many chances in life to come back from shit like this? I guarantee you that between the five of us, we do that once and we've screwed our life forever. We don't have that luxury. And it kind of feels to me with Paul Diano. And look, I love the music that he made in Maiden, and I love a lot of the stuff that he's done outside of Maiden. But there comes a point where you have to take responsibility for your own shit and be a human being. Don't expect others to just sit there and just give you their money when maybe some of these people can't even pay for their own groceries. But hey, you were a big part of my life, so I want to give you, $100 for your operation when maybe those $100 could have gone to feeding my children. I don't know, something like that. Brad, your take?
Yeah, wow, that's really tough because you kind of when people need help. Let's face it. I think everybody here would do everything they could to help somebody. Okay, and I don't think that's what the question is here, because I don't like being put in a position where somebody says, hey, if you can give me $1,000, that would take care of all my problems, kind of a thing. As you say no, then you come off like a dick, unless you absolutely don't have the money. And it's a perplexing thing. But I agree with everything that you guys said. For me, if I was having problems, and I've had problems, I've had health problems and have not been able to pay for it and been able to work things out. I didn't ask people for help, but I worked it out, and I feel like I've gone forward to pay it all back as well.
Just going to say the big difference here, Brad, is that in the UK, your healthcare is free. You pay it through your taxation. So Danny Bowes was entitled to free healthcare. He got it free. He was just trying to get it quicker than everyone else. That was the difference between you and in the States. Obviously, you have to pay for it.
Yeah, that opens a whole nother can of worms, because we're constantly being told here in the United States how awful our healthcare plan is. Why can't we be like these other countries that have free healthcare? And I don't even want to go there. Okay, so let's just talk about this. I as well hope the best for Paul Diano. I don't know him. I don't know Danny Bowes. I love his music. I hope he heals up, and I hope he can live a happy life. I hope the best for these guys, but I just feel like probably the people that they're getting money from probably shouldn't. They need that money for their own issues. They're not people who can be like, oh yeah, I got lots of money. I'll help Danny Bowes out. It's probably people who just love the band and are probably scraping by, and they're like, well, you know what? I'm gonna give him money anyway, just because I love the band, and I kind of feel like that's not really cool either. I don't know. That's a tough one. That's a really tough topic. But I'll leave it to the other bastions of socialized medicine to go further with this question. Go ahead, guys.
Yeah, but this is kind of what you said is kind of what I was alluding to, is that the people that are probably going to give the most are the people that can least afford to give the most, is what I'm
Right.
kind of getting
Right.
at. Anthony, your take on this. Your mic is silent.
Could we do charades?
Oh yeah, no, I had myself muted when I wasn't talking.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. The only time I've ever encountered something like this was when Jerry from King's X had one of his heart attacks, and instead of doing what Jeremy is describing here, they immediately dug through their tapes and offered a download or a CD. They were selling something,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
it was a recording that amongst the fans had been requested and sought after for a long time, and I bought it and was happy to buy it. But there was a return for it. They weren't just asking for money.
Yeah, that's a totally different thing.
Yeah,
And I think probably, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Anthony.
that's okay.
But I think also, I mean, all these guys, musicians, have musician friends. You could put on a charity show,
Mm-hmm.
and the fans would gladly line up for that. And then the fans are actually getting something rather
Right.
than just peeling off. So I think what Anthony's talking about here is totally cool.
No, it obviously if you're going to arrange some sort of charity show or something like that, then you're talking about months away, whereas they obviously needed it now, which is where I thought the download came in, and this is a few years ago, like when you could get everything, but not as easily as you can now. So I don't know, that worked for them, and it worked for me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So as you guys are saying, that makes sense. You're getting something in return instead of just, oh, give me your money, because I need it. And King's X, I mean, obviously has never been as successful as Maiden has. And then you could probably debate that that Thunder again in the UK has probably made more money over their entire career, probably made more than King's X has in 30 years.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, okay, that's another
that's
conversation, you know.
Yeah. But yeah, Johan, what do you think?
Oh, you said it all, but I don't like isn't it this some kind of sign of the times that you raise a lot of money for a lot of things nowadays? People asking through Facebook and internet about all kinds of, charities, and I guess they just, take the chance to, if I get some, I get some, but I don't like it. And I feel for a band, I mean, Paul Di'Anno, I don't have any huge respect for him as a person nowadays. But Danny from Thunder is, I mean, I didn't see that coming. He seems like such a gentleman. So, but I guess they try whatever they can.
Yeah.
But also that may not have been coming from Danny, though, asking for the money. So we don't know that.
No.
Paul, obviously. Of course, I was going to say he doesn't have a leg to stand on, but
the thing with Paul Di'Anno, though, I mean, he's lucky because Maiden could have easily told him to go scratch, and not because they don't have the money, but because, for example, when Clive Burr was sick, he bashed the band continuously. When the band had done several fundraising shows, they had been giving him money behind the scenes, where the band didn't want to make it public that they were giving Clive Burr money.
Yeah.
Where that's a situation where, Paul was coming out and kind of talking nonsense in the press, when behind the scenes the band didn't want that to come out. They didn't want it to come out that they were helping, Clive however they could. And at that point, where he was coming out and saying, well, the band makes millions and they should be giving Clive millions. Theoretically, if someone walks away from a business, do you have to help them? I get it, the humanitarian part of it. The band said, yes, we can do it. But it seemed like he almost feels entitled that the band needed to do something when he's done everything over the years to badmouth them, to not be on good terms, to do all of this stuff. And then, being that they're the good people that they are, they came through, met with him, didn't care, and felt that the right thing to do was to help him regardless. So, as Johan said, it leaves you scratching your head how he still asks for things, or he still talks negatively about different things, when he should be the first person kissing everyone's ass, because everyone is helping him every step of the way. They've been helping him. So anyway, topic number 2 here, which really caught me off guard today. Are musicians' wedding anniversaries, are those news topics? Are those headline news all of a sudden? Frank Bello celebrates 26 years with his wife. Look, that's amazing. Congrats to Frank. But does this need to be headline news on all the metal sites today? I forget somebody else's anniversary was posted as well. Anthony, is this newsworthy stuff? I get it that they're posting it on their social media, but is shit so hard to find a headline that we're glomming from people's social media to post their anniversary pictures?
I've no interest in that. I wouldn't read that. I saw it, and I, like you, congratulations. Scroll.
Yeah, exactly. Jeremy, what do you think?
I think I actually like to see it occasionally, because I just like to see who they're married to, because I like rocker women. But that's a separate thing.
That's another topic.
No, I think that sometimes the news is a bit thin, isn't it? Particularly over the summer as well, and it's like that with the albums, that are released over certain times of the year. So I think, you can't blame news sites if they need to keep, clickbait going. They need to, they need to keep churning out stuff. But do I want to see it? Not really, I suppose. No, I want to know about the latest album or the latest concerts, and that sort of stuff. So.
Yeah, my devil's advocate to that is there's plenty of podcasts interviewing people. You could just, they can just listen to some shows and post some clips from that. They do it the rest of the year. But anyway, Johan, what do you think? Are you happy to know that, a musician is celebrating their anniversary? Does that make you want to, I don't know, check out maybe what food they had for their celebration?
Yes, I would like to know that. That would be fun. No, I mean, as Jeremy said, during the summer, the newspapers are quite thin. So I guess they have to find whatever news they can put up. But I was happy to see Frankie Bello's wife. I didn't know he was married. I have never saw her before. So I like that one. I didn't read. I just read a little bit, but good for them.
Okay, cool. Brad, how about you?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's pretty cool when anybody stays married. I'm kind of a fan of that thing. Rather than celebrating things not going well, but I don't care.
Yeah, I don't know if that was the point. Kind of like, hey, shock! Frank Bello's been married for 26 years. Is that
that is shocking. I mean, I don't know. Frank's probably a really nice guy. I know he designed a really nice bass over there, which he's not even playing that anymore, which I think that's a whole nother topic. If you're going to have a custom guitar or bass made and then you don't use it, well, that's with that. Anyway, go on.
1-year contract. That's what happens there. So
it's all about the money.
That's it. All right. Topic number 3. And this kind of came up because I saw that Paul McCartney is going to do a new podcast talking about lyrics that he's written.
Ooh.
So my question to you guys is, what band or artist that does not have a podcast would you be interested in having them do a podcast, even if it's a limited run? Let's say if it's them talking about their lyrics or them talking about, I don't know, albums or different things. Anthony, what band would you be interested in checking out?
I'm gonna say probably none.
Okay.
Because the few that I have heard, I like listening to podcasts about bands.
Okay.
Maybe people digging in and, you know, getting deep into a catalog or something. Even I'll listen to people talk about Kiss. Like, I don't want to listen to Kiss, but I'll listen to people talking about Kiss.
Right.
And like, there's not really interested in listening to the band themselves talk about it. That's a peek behind the curtain, you know. I don't really want it, almost like the wedding anniversaries. You know, I don't really want to know about bands' personal lives.
Okay.
And bands doing their own podcasts, they can be too familiar, you know. There's a nice distance that you have when you're a fan, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So I did listen to the Metallica one, which I thought was quite good. They had a few episodes of an official podcast,
right?
But it was done really well. Like, the production value on it was obviously sky high. That was a good listen. But it wasn't.
Go ahead.
No, that's it. I'm kind of finished.
Okay. No, but that's a good point, because a lot of people talk about how social media has kind of robbed us of the mystique of some of these bands, where you become kind of too familiar with them. And with some of them, it's like, oh, okay, that's just like the guy I know who lives down the street, or the guy that I see at the pub every weekend, as opposed to, holy crap, it's the guy from such and such a band, where there's kind of like an aura around them, because, you know, you're seeing a larger than life figure, but then you realize he's kind of just like you. Again, my flip side to that conversation for you is, so if King's X decides to do an episode on how Gretchen Goes to Nebraska, how those lyrics came together, what it was like to record, Dogman, so on and so forth.
Yeah. I knew you'd do that. Yeah, I'd be interested in it if it was done well. You know, there's plenty.
They'd have to have Victor come and host it.
Yeah, there's plenty of long form interviews out there with Doug, and he's always very interesting to listen to.
Yeah,
when he's asked questions that prompt answers, but I don't know, them just sitting around talking amongst themselves. Do you know what I mean? Like, I suppose it could be done well.
Right. Yeah, it has to be edited in a certain fashion so that it makes it an appealing listen. That's kind of what the Metallica one did.
Yeah.
It was pieced together well enough so that you had, you know, outside people talking about them, people, you know, from management, people from the label, fans, producers, you know, you had all that kind of pieced together so that it made it a good listen, so that it flowed really well. And it's funny because that one it took me like, I think 2 or 3 episodes to start to listen to it because I was like, oh man, this is going to suck. I don't want to give it a shot because I kind of had high expectations. And then I started listening to it and I went through like every episode that was available that day because it kind of sucked you in. It was done well. I think the only episode I couldn't get through was the last one where it was just the fan comments over and over again. It was like 2 hours of fan comments, and it was like,
Same.
okay, yeah, all right. 5 minutes in, I get it. This guy loves the band. I get it. It changed their life. Yes, okay, fine. Next. Oh, same kind of thing. All right. So I got through like 10, 15 minutes. I'm like, yeah, right. I've heard the 2 hours already.
Yeah. No, like there's a like it's not necessarily Signals from Mars stuff, but like there was a Weezer podcast I listened to where these two nerds were going through the whole album by album in unbelievable detail, and it was great. So like I like things like that, but the
Right.
bands themselves, I don't think so. Anyway, next.
Jeremy, how about you?
Yeah, I think maybe an Iron Maiden one. I'd like to hear what Dave Murray and Adrian Smith have got to say on a regular basis. I think those two talking together. I don't think in my 50 odd years of life, nearly 60 odd years of life, I've never heard Dave Murray. I don't think I've ever heard him speak. So I'd like to probably hear him and Adrian Smith banging on about guitaring and various things that go on the road without Bruce, because I think Bruce would just take it over. So that would be fun. I'd like to hear the guys out of Rush, but I'm probably stepping on Johan territory, so I'll back off that one for a minute. I'd definitely like to hear a sort of new wave of British heavy metal one, so probably all of those bands together sort of popping on one week after the other. I was going to say Black Sabbath, but I actually heard Eddie Trunk interview Geezer Butler the other week, and it was the most boring interview I've ever heard in my life. Geezer's not an interesting guy. Not Tony Iommi's pretty interesting, but Geezer's not. So that one's probably not worth it. So yeah, probably I'd like to maybe hear Iron Maiden.
Speaking of that Geezer interview, seriously, Tony Iommi, the most underrated guitarist. I don't know what press he reads, but I think Iommi's probably one of the most highly regarded guitarists of all time. So that one kind of caught me off guard, but okay, if you say so, Geezer. That falls somewhere in between the no, I did the devil horns before Dio did, and Tony Iommi's the most underrated guitarist of all time. Okay, gotcha. Alex Lifeson is probably a lot more underrated than Tony Iommi is. So,
Sure.
Johan,
Alex Lifeson is really fun to listen to.
Well, that's a good point, because if you've seen him like on Trailer Park Boys or South Park or anything else, or even just on their DVDs where they're doing little skits and different things, you can tell that they like to have fun and make fun of each other and of other things. So, yeah, that could be interesting. But go ahead, Johan. What do you think?
About Rush, as that you said, Jeremy, there's a lot of good podcasts about Rush, and some of them have Geddy in them. He's not very frequent, but quite frequent in different podcasts, so that's a good thing. No, this was a fun question, and I thought about it, and my choice for a person to have a podcast is Michael Åkerfeldt from the band Opeth. About 10 years ago, he had a program on national radio where he talked about prog music from the 70s and 60s. And he seems like a professor. I know he's one of the biggest record collectors we have here in Sweden, and he buys a lot of fun records. And he is very interesting to hear. And I don't want to hear him talk about Opeth or so, but music in general, he's really good to listen to. So that would be a podcast that I definitely would check out.
All right, Brad, how about you?
Yeah. This is a really great question. It depends on the person, because not everybody's going to be really good, uh, you know, podcaster,
Right.
or a good speaker. You talk about Geezer. I mean, who wouldn't want to just sit down and have lunch with Geezer and chat about music? But when you get one word answers, that's kind of tough. Uh, but a good example of what you're talking about, though, is Kenny Aronoff. I've just learned that he's started a YouTube channel and does interviews with other musicians as they pop into town. And you think, well, guy, he's played with so many people and he seems like quite a character. Yeah, this could probably be really good. I've only watched one of them, but it was boring. And it was with Steve Lukather. And if you can't have an interesting discussion with Steve Lukather, where he's just telling ridiculous stories, then something's wrong here. And I felt like these guys got so far like into their own, yeah, I played with that guy. Yeah, I played with that guy. And not enough really. I don't know. It wasn't very good. I'm probably gonna check out a couple more of his things to see if they're any better. But yeah, I think it's better to have a musician interviewed by somebody who really is a good interviewer.
Right.
They're not going to ask the stock questions. They actually know stuff that really has things they want to know. And I think that'd be much better. But there's probably musicians out there who could do a really good podcast. I don't know who they are.
Yeah, I think for that, you'd probably need somebody who's like a super fan, like how Johan just mentioned. Because, yeah, if it's just people kind of bragging to one another, like who they've played with, all right.
Yeah.
So it's one of these things where, okay, enough talking about me. Let's talk about me.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
kind of vain and just egotistical, as opposed to, telling stories. I think most of us are sucked in by those stories that some of these artists will talk about. Some things that maybe, hey, I remembered um, working in this studio and what made this studio unique. And, I often think about how I didn't like a lot of Slash's book, but hearing him talk about like the situation of them recording Appetite for Destruction and then the whole experience of trying to recapture that again for the Use Your Illusion albums and not being able to, and then because of gear and because of this, that kind of thing kind of are some of the things that I kind of stuck to, where it didn't bore me as much because there were kind of ancillary things being talked about some of these songs. Yeah, okay, that's great that you've played with everyone under the sun, but you know, that it kind of takes me back to D. Snyder just talking about himself all the time, as opposed to wanting to tell stories about things that he's done over the years, or interview people to talk to them, which I think would kind of be a fun conversation. So, um, cool points all around, and I mean everything is pretty valid. There's nothing worse than wanting to hear from someone, or wanting to talk to someone and finding out that they're just an absolute dud where they've got nothing to say. So
Yeah.
I get exactly what Anthony's saying and what Jeremy's saying about Geezer. So
Oh, I just thought of one musician that has a podcast that I actually do like, and that's Ryan Roxy. I
okay,
think I think he does a really nice job because he comes prepared. He has really good questions. It's more talk about you, and plus it's different when a fellow musician is interviewing a
right.
musician. They'll kind of open up a little bit more, and I mean, really cool things can happen during those interviews. So
Yeah,
so there's one that actually is okay.
that's one of the reasons why I initially used to listen to the Jamie Josta's show, because I felt that he could get that out of musicians where they respected him. So there were certain things that they could talk about that, if I were to ask, they would say, yeah, I've got another call on the other line, I got to go, type of an answer. But I've heard him interview John Bush, for example, and have John say, hey, I'm owed, I don't know how many royalties or residuals from my years in Anthrax. And then the following week, have him interview Scott Ian and say, hey, John said this. And Scott saying, well, that's beyond our control. That's this person. That's blah, blah, blah. So if it was anyone else outside of someone that they respected, you wouldn't have those types of conversations. So it's kind of cool to get that. And otherwise, you probably wouldn't have that. I think with Josh Toomey, who I've had on the show a few times, it's kind of a similar thing where he's interviewed people that he's toured with, so they're more susceptible to opening up to him and telling certain stories or sharing certain things, whereas other people that kind of don't know him don't give him the same type of interview. So
Yeah, but that's a different proposition. That's not really what you were asking about in the first place. Like,
True.
like Justin Hawkins' podcast on our YouTube channel. He can do a good interview.
Mm-hmm.
That's just because he's got a good personality. That's not
Right.
necessarily what he's not on there talking about the darkness all the time.
Right. Yeah, it's valid point. Glad you steering us in other directions again.
Sorry. You're right. I didn't answer your question. I think about my favorite bands and what I like to have them have a podcast. I mean, the answer is, well, I'd love to hear from them, but I don't, you don't know. It might really suck.
Right.
So who knows? I love music. That's why we're here.
Do the guys from Blue Oyster Cult remember recording in the 70s?
Yeah, I would see. That's the thing. I would love to interview those guys. I would love to chat with them and sit down and talk about, oh God, dude. I don't know. That could be really, really cool. And yeah, I would definitely have a lot of questions that probably the average person would be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But anyway, all right, you're right, Anthony. We went way off the question.
Hijacking. I'm the hijacker. All right. Next topic here. Jacoby Shaddix, lead singer of Papa Roach, says Korn, Papa Roach, and Deftones were like the next Metallicas. Anthony, your response to that?
I don't know if I have a response to that. I suppose
that in itself is a response.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Like when everyone's always wondering who's going to be the next headliners. The next big headliners, because Metallica can't do it forever. And I remember when, at some point going, I think mid-90s, I was like, who is going to be the next big headliner? It's probably Soundgarden, and they sort of made it to that level. So I guess to some people at some point, those bands were that. Not to me, so I don't know.
But you just mentioned something interesting with your choice of words.
Okay.
At some point in time, they were that.
Okay, right.
So my thing to his comment is, I think his comments are 25 to 30 years late. This is something we could have talked about in the mid to late 90s with these specific bands.
What was the actual quote? Like it was like, isn't that really what he was saying?
Okay, let's
at one point these were going to be the next Metallica. I think that's a valid opinion to have had at some point.
Oh yes, right. As you're saying this, correct. I agree with you 100%.
Okay,
that's a valid opinion to have had it at one point. But let me find the exact quote. Oh well, there you go. Him and his wife celebrated their 26th anniversary as well. Okay, so the actual quote is, when being interviewed by Andy Hall of Des Moines, Iowa's radio station, Laser 103.3.
Wait a second. Des Moines has a rock radio station?
Yeah.
Well done, Des Moines.
Oh, they have to. If Slipknot's from there, I would assume they would have something.
Are they?
Yeah. So, all right. So, as transcribed by blabbermouth.net, we're watching Metallica step into that Rolling Stones spot right now. And the Foo Fighters are another one of those groups. And Korn, Papa Roach, and Deftones we're like the next Metallicas. You know what I mean? That's it. We're stepping into the spot now. It just comes to, I guess, being able to survive the treachery of this rock and roll life. And if you can do that and still continue to create good art and good music, then we can just get into that space. Okay.
Yeah, I don't really follow.
Well, I think his comments are nonsense. I think. All right. I think your analogy is kind of better in the sense that Soundgarden was a band at one point that we all felt could have slotted into that spot, but through the band splitting up, divorces, this and that, they never quite made it there. Metallica's the biggest metal band of all time, whether anyone wants to likes that statement or not. The fact is they've sold more albums than Sabbath, than Maiden, than any other metal band. And you could probably combine both of those bands and they've probably still sold more albums than them. So to me, a comment that Korn, Papa Roach, and Deftones can step into that slot, they've never been close to that slot. As much as I love Korn and as big as they were in the late 90s and early 2000s, they've never been in that Metallica slot. I would argue that Ride the Lightning Metallica was already bigger than any of these bands. So I think that the comment kind of makes no sense. Now, if we're going to say that Korn, Papa Roach, and Deftones are stepping into that spot where Soundgarden was, where Lamb of God was a few years ago, where, you know, a bunch of bands that were on the cusp, on that second level to be second or third on the bill, where Machine Head was at one time. I mean, to me, Metallica, Maiden, Slipknot, how many other bands are there out there in 2023 that don't have to tour with somebody else to have a headline tour? And what I'm saying is, as much as Motley Crue and Def Leppard want to talk about all their album sales, if they don't have 3 or 4 bands on that bill, they're not selling all those tickets. Motley Crue on their own isn't selling the same amount of tickets as Iron Maiden is in 2023 or Slipknot. Papa Roach, to me, are they Jeremy, you've been to Download a bunch of times. Papa Roach has been at Download a bunch of times. Are they close to being third or fourth from the top of the bill?
Maybe third or fourth, but no higher than that. Certainly not. No.
You have a band like Korn who has headlined Download before. They've headlined other festivals. They've headlined a date, but again, in 2023, they don't have that staying power. Papa Roach, for as big as they might be in the States, they're not selling dick outside of the UK and Europe. They're just not that big. They're a big band in the US, but they've never been an arena level band on their own. So I mean, I think I think Jacoby is living in his own world here. Johan, do you see any band, in your opinion, come through Sweden that could be on a level like a Metallica that's pulling in the same amount of people? I mean, maybe in Sweden, maybe an Arch Enemy, maybe, some homegrown. No, okay.
No, Arch Enemy is playing in quite small venues. And I kind of feel that they have almost stepped back one step with this album. I think, yeah, they have. They play a little bit smaller arenas
Okay.
now. But for your question, there is, and we have talked about this before, but in Sweden, and I don't know about the rest of Europe, a band like Volbeat feels that they could step up, not selling out, 3 stadium nights in Gothenburg like Metallica do, but Volbeat is a band that attracts people not only from the metal genre, but throughout the whole spectrum of music people. So they sell out quite big arenas here. Ghost as well.
Okay. Yeah, Ghost, and Volbeat. I would understand in that statement before the bands that were mentioned.
Yeah. And the band that you mentioned, the bands in the quote, I have never listened to them. But Korn headlined Roskilde Festival when they were at their top.
Right. But we're talking about, at this point, we're talking 20 years ago.
Yes.
That's what I'm kind of getting at.
Yeah.
If this statement was made in 2002, you've got me. I'm sold on the statement, because at that time, Korn, Papa Roach, and Deftones were there. We're at that point, were some of the biggest bands at that point in time, but they have not sustained it. And Korn is still a band that does well at festivals, but still goes out. Korn was opening up for Slipknot a few years ago. So, and they've opened up for Metallica a bunch as well. Brad, your feeling on this? Is there any band that comes through through California or Utah or anywhere remotely close to your area that's on their own, that's slotting in and taking over for Metallica? Let's not go as far as what Johan said, where they're selling out 3 stadiums, but doing really well in one arena for one night on their own.
Other than like flash in the pan type stuff, or Taylor Swift, that's not flash in the pan, but holy crap, can she pack them in? I'm looking at Avenged Sevenfold seems to do pretty big business.
Okay,
I was just thinking of them.
I don't know how their new album's doing. I've tried listening to it because I thought, I should play some songs off of this, and the songs just didn't grab me. But maybe I need to try harder. I'll give it another listen.
No, I don't know that you really do have to try harder. That was okay. I haven't been able to get through that one, and I'm not one of these people that said, once he stopped singing guttural vocals, they kind of ceased to exist. No,
it's not the vocals, it's the songs. I mean, there's like parts of a song that'll be like, that's pretty cool, and then all of a sudden it does something really just out there and weird, and which I kind of applaud that in a way. It's like, you guys are experimenting there rather than just being like, we're just going to write the same stuff over and over. But I'm looking at a list of the big outdoor venue here, where Nathan and I are going to see Ghost in a couple of weeks, which is pretty exciting. The next show there is Smashing Pumpkins, which I'm like, wow, really? Can they pack them in enough people to really sell that thing? Wow.
They've had some big radio hits, so I guess.
Yeah, but still, I mean, who's going to lay how much money they went? Oh, wow. Well, these are like really what would be for Ghost, probably cost you about $150 to sit in these seats. They're selling them for $32.
Wow.
And these are not resale. These are and this is coming up like next week. So, they got a lot of tickets to sell here. Good luck, boys. And then we got after that Offspring with Sum 41 and A Simple Plan, which that's kind of a theme kind of thing.
Yeah.
So they're probably going to pull in a bunch of 90s people. Then you got country, Luke Bryan. He'll probably do really well. Yellow Card, I have no idea what that is. Then Ghost, and then Foo Fighters, which I got to be honest with you. I mean, it's not that I don't that I don't think they're any good, but I don't find a lot of excitement listening to their music. So, I think that's more where people drink the Kool-Aid. Maybe they are really good, and I'm just a dumbass. Look at this. Mudvayne is headlining there. Holy crap! Really?
Yeah, they're doing their first. They just started their first headline tour in, I think, since early 2000s.
Would you pay $100 to see Mudvayne?
I really like Mudvayne, but I don't know that I'd pay $100 to see them. I'd pay, I'd pay
well, the
30.
good news is you wouldn't have to. They're only $40 each.
I'd see them for $40.
Yeah, that's not bad. So that's how these bands are doing this. This is really intriguing. Pantera.
Okay.
So they're headlining this place. Let's see how much their tickets are. Oh, they're $50.
Well, that's still not bad.
No, that's not bad. I'm kind of impressed at how low these ticket prices are. Most of the stuff I look at now is so stupid expensive. Oh, we got the Mega Monster Tour. You got Mastodon and Gojira, which that would certainly fit a certain group, and those are $40. Wow, these are like seats, and not up on the grass kind of thing. I've never seen tickets this low. I guess I need to start thinking about going to more shows. Oh wait, Sting is coming. Let's see what he's charging. I bet it ain't $40. Okay, so $90. That's still not that's pretty not bad for Sting.
That's par for the course here. From all the shows that I've been looking at, Depeche Mode is coming here.
Yeah.
And it's 85 and up, unless you want to be all the way in the back with the rollaway bleacher seats, which I can't imagine sitting in those because they're going to be vibrating the whole fucking time. You're going to think you're in an earthquake the entire show.
Avenged Sevenfold, they're $40 a pop.
All right.
So that's wow. These are actually good prices. I'm very impressive. Then you get into Shinedown. Shinedown thinks they're going to get $60 a ticket.
Well, they've
crappy seat.
I've never gotten into them, but they're like a cut below Foo Fighters for a lot of people.
You got their fans. Okay. Yeah. So yeah. I don't know. I just hope there's more good rock music coming. I believe there will be. Anytime I go to a music store, there's always like some 14-year-old kid in there playing Metallica. And I figure as long as there's 14-year-old kids playing Metallica, there's hope for rock music.
Yeah.
For the future.
No.
And playing guitar too. Good job, kids. Any kids watching this, if you don't play guitar or play bass or play drums. Don't mess with the keyboards.
Note that for the second topic, consecutive topic, Hijack Brad has the forefront. All right. Next question is Avenged Sevenfold related. Johnny Christ of Avenged Sevenfold calls Bohemian Rhapsody a musical masterpiece for songwriting. Now, for as much as my kids who have, like a lot of other kids do to Bohemian Rhapsody, the movie, a lot of Queen has been introduced to younger kids. They've said to me, I don't understand why you don't like listening to the song all the time. I said, well, because I've listened to it all the time in the past. But putting that aside, do I think that it's one of these quintessential songs? When I saw this, I thought about a conversation I had earlier this week with my son regarding Stairway to Heaven. There are songs like these that I think we've all listened to 1,000,001 times that maybe we can't stomach to listen to all the time anymore, but we can still appreciate the magnitude of these songs. Brad, what do you think? Let's go counterclockwise here.
Okay, so I don't hijack this. What do I think as far as Bohemian Rhapsody? His comment about Bohemian Rhapsody?
Yeah, being a masterpiece.
I don't know about that. I mean, it's. I think back to the first time I heard this crap. It was a teenager back then. very good. I think the one thing that really made that song
Right.
the fact we shot in downtown, grew up, spent lots of times on the Citrus Avenue there, and so that made it kind of fun. Plus the AMC Pacer was pretty cool as well. But as far as the song goes, I don't know. It's good. It's got really good parts. Yeah.
Okay.
I like other Queen songs better.
Okay. So, Johan, what do you think?
Yeah, I didn't hijack it.
Look at that.
Well,
yeah.
I think it's a masterpiece. I really must say that. I heard it when I was very young. My father's wife had the record, and I listened to it, and I thought it was good. And then when I saw it on Live Aid when I was 12 or so, I thought it was magnificent. And even though I can't listen to it on a daily basis, I can, put on the Live Aid DVD box set and watch it from time to time. Yeah, I think it's a masterpiece, really.
Okay, Jeremy?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Johan. I mean, obviously, I was brought up on Queen as a young lad, and I listened to it, on the radio, and I just thought, wow, that's it's just amazing. I mean, it's very unique. I can only think of maybe Bat Out of Hell that sort of equals it in terms of just being so over the top as a rock opera song. It's to put it out as a single in those days was incredible. Obviously, it was the very first video. And I just think that it's a work of genius. There's so many parts to it, yet it works in its entirety. So, yeah, I mean, I've obviously heard it a million times. I don't necessarily want to go and play it tomorrow. But when I do hear it, I'll sing along to it like everybody else does. And, it's amazing. You couldn't create it again. It's just, it's a totally unique type of piece of music. And there are certain other things that are quite unique like that, but very few.
All right. Anthony, your opinion?
It's it depends how you want to define song, like it's a unusually constructed piece of music, I suppose. Look, that's nonsense. No, yeah, it's amazing. Of course it is. And yeah, I've heard it a million times. And I remember when my boys were, getting into music and playing it to them for the first time, and you sort of hear it with new ears because you're sitting, and it's like, wow, incredible. And we did the same with Stairway to Heaven. Actually, you mentioned that. That's a song, like, I'm not into Zeppelin, but we played that and we watched their reactions, and we remembered hearing it the first time ourselves. And that's also, you forget how good it is. And I would say that about Bohemian Rhapsody too.
Okay, cool. Awesome. And real quickly here, one last point, which kind of floated in during the day, because I saw that the complete studio album collection from Pantera was released today, which they've been doing, where they've been grouping together certain bands like Dokken and Rat and Skid Row and Overkill, where they've been releasing CDs and vinyl together in a box set. And as I was mentioning to you guys off air, I went into a record shop the other day with my kids, and they had the Rat and the Dokken. And my first question was, are these the original mixes, or have they done anything to improve the sound to make these albums louder without brick walling them? And the comment by the person in the shop was, no, it's the same as the original that was released. To me, buying them on vinyl maybe would be more appealing, but CD was all they had. And that kind of turned me off. What do you guys feel on this? Anthony, if you're seeing something like this where it's a reissue of someone's complete work on CD or on vinyl, do you want it to sound better, louder? Do you want it to sound the same as it did when you listened to it as a kid?
It depends. If it's oftentimes you see these collections and there might be 5 albums in it, and like you've already got 3 of them,
Right.
so it's like, why would you buy it again? Yeah, I don't know. Like Marillion are doing all these reissues at the moment. They're going through album by album and they're remixing them all and they're making them sound modern.
Right.
And I've listened to most of them, and like I go back to the originals.
Right.
You know, it's familiarity, I suppose. I don't know what it is. It's yeah, I don't know. The only one of those box sets I've ever bought was a Blue Oyster Cult one, actually, and there was I think 5 albums in it. And I didn't buy it for any reissue reason. I bought it because, oh, great, this is a chance to buy 5 albums for a tenner or something. You know,
Right.
I don't know any of these.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only way I would buy them one.
Okay. Jeremy, what do you think?
Well, I've probably got both in my collection, and the most I prefer the remastered copies, to be honest. I mean, I've just played yesterday Queensryche's Empire remastered, and it sounds fantastic. The sound quality is amazing. So I'm not into remixing. I'm not into them fanning around with whatever they want to do with the songs. I just want them to sound a better quality than they were in the old days, because sometimes the production in the old days was not very good, and it sounded a bit tinny. And so if they can improve it a little bit and it sounds deeper and it's got more to it, then that's what I prefer. So yeah, remaster for me is what would turn me on.
Johan?
To be honest, I'm not the biggest I don't care so much about how it sounds. I like the songs. I don't pay so much attention on production and that sort of things. But sure, remastered. I bought a lot of remasters, and they are better, but this is not a big thing for me. And as Anthony was saying, if they have the box sets with 5 CDs, I probably have 3 of them, as you said. And so this is nothing that I think or care much about.
Okay. Brad?
Yeah, I definitely want it to be remastered, but I also want it to be better, because I've bought remasters that really weren't much different than the original, and that's very disappointing. And I don't want a brick wall, because I've got box sets like what you're talking about there, where you get all the albums and you figure, and they claim to be remastered, and really all they did was push it up and make it just awful. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, make it sound good. And I'm actually okay if they want to remix something, but they do it well. I mean, I've heard some really cool remixes of albums. Some of Steve Wilson did the remix of Black Sabbath's Technical Ecstasy. That was great. I really enjoyed listening to that. The Dio Holy Diver remix I think is really good.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the kind of weirdest thing with the 2 that I mentioned, the Rat and the Dokken, is that Rock Candy remixed these years ago, and they kind of modernized the sound or brought up the levels more than anything. And I thought it sounded great. And then with the Atlantic doing it or Warner Brothers doing it, it's kind of back to the old thing where I kind of thought this sound, someone's already not fixed it, but somebody has improved upon the original sound.
Yeah.
So why go back? That was kind of my head scratcher because they did it. They released them in Japan as well. And, and I guess that license is over. So
I'd say that's a rights thing going on there.
Yeah.
That's nothing to do with the audience. That's a business thing.
Yeah, I just thought it was kind of weird when something came out. I mean, like you guys have mentioned, sometimes they just mess around with some of the stuff and they hide things or they pump up other things that were kind of hidden in the mix before, where it's like, okay, well, that kind of ruins it for me. There are others where I know where Bob Ezrin took the original tapes for Destroyer and redid that, and I really enjoyed what he did with that personally. And I know that there's a lot
Me too. Yeah, that's a good remix.
Yeah, but there's people that hated it and prefer Steve Wilson also remixed that as well, with that like $500 box set that they released a few years ago. And they did, and beyond that, with the Steve Wilson mixes, they made it 5.1 mix, and they did, there's some things where, for example, I have 9 Inch Nails Downward Spiral with a 5.1 mix, which makes more sense because there's a lot of orchestration. There's a lot of things going on in the background that were kind of flat in the original mix. Fine, but you get this a band like Kiss, unless we're talking about Great Expectations, where you have an orchestra and a chorus and stuff like that, where that can really fill out the mix. Do we really need a 5.1 mix? It's almost like taking Rolling Stone Satisfaction and wanting to give that a 5.1 mix. It just kind of doesn't work. I don't know. In any event, not to hijack this last question. Seems to be the theme for the night. I want to thank the 4 of you for joining us tonight. I want to thank anyone who's watched the show live or watched the replay or listening to the podcast version. There are some new things to restream. So I was popping up QR codes to Amazon, UK, US, Canada, the Patreon, stuff like that. So if you're not a patron, you can try for a week for free initially. If you want to jump on in with any of those QR codes and purchase something from Amazon, I do have to mention that I'm an Amazon associate, so a portion of your sale may or may not come my direction. Don't want Amazon booting me off of their system for whatever money they may send my way. So anyway, just wrapping up the show here. It's awesome to catch up with you guys again and talk some music here tonight. It was a lot of fun. We will hopefully be back to doing consistent live shows in the coming weeks, and hope that you'll be back to join us. Real quickly, any parting words, Anthony? Anything you'd like to say before wrapping up?
1986, isn't that what we're doing next?
That is
not next, but in the future.
Yes, that we have to figure out a band next. I know that I'd thrown out there kind of behind the scenes of possibly doing AC/DC. We'll see what people think of that. I know that we probably have enough people that enjoy AC/DC that will make sense. Jeremy, any parting words?
Just that it's going to be raining here tomorrow and there's nothing to do.
What do you mean there's nothing to do? You could always watch replays of Signals from Mars.
True.
Johan. Almost called you Johan for some reason. Johan, any parting words?
I listen to The Mission a little bit nowadays.
Oh wow!
And that's my parting words.
Do you like their cover of the Rolling Stones' Symphony for the Devil?
Yeah, it's good. But they have done many songs that are better. But this is a band that I only touched upon a little back in the day. But I heard an interview with Wayne Hussey, and I thought he was interesting. So I started to listening back on them. And so I sat on the train between London and Stansted and listened to The Mission and felt really British.
How would you classify them? Would you classify them as a gothic band? Would you classify them as a alternative rock band? Are they in between a few different genres? I mean, what is your take?
I guess more goth than alternative. I find them quite mainstream many times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, cool. Brad, parting words.
I need a 10-song playlist by The Mission from Johan.
Okay.
So I can check this out because I really am not familiar with them. So I need to, if Johan says something, I take it to heart, which is why I now am saying Bohemian Rhapsody is. What was the word he used to describe it?
Masterpiece.
A masterpiece. Yes. So I have to agree with that. In fact, I have to agree with everybody on this panel. Anytime you guys tell me something about music, which is why I've been listening to Marillion, anytime you guys tell me something, I figure if it moved the needle for you, it's probably going to do something for me. And so far, it's been on point. You guys have never steered me into muddy waters of poop. So good job. So everybody watching this right now, go out and listen to something good, rock out, go to a concert, and for hell's sake, become a patron here on Patreon, and hang out with us, and let's get you on here and let's hear what you're thinking about music. We've never kicked anybody out yet. We've had people leave. Okay, well, that's enough of that.
Yeah.
I believe you can do this for free for a week. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. But don't be such a cheap bastard. $2 a month.
We'll sponsor your healthcare bills.
Come hang out with us, man. Bring your love of music and hang out with us. I'm happy with the group we have, but every so often, I mean, when we get new people, it's fun.
Yeah. It is absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. So on that note,
cheers.
We're wrapping up tonight's show. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time right here on Signals from Mars. See ya.
Thank you for watching the Signals from Mars live stream. You can watch the show live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, or check out replays on YouTube. Go to signalsfrommars.com for more information. This concludes our show.